Welcome to the WorldWire Update Yet. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon for more updates and thrilling short scenes. The year 2025 began with a seismic shock, sending ripples through the global economy and catching both experts and everyday people off guard. President Donald Trump invoked the rarely used 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, wielding it to impose sweeping tariffs on America's trading partners in a move that stunned the world. A 25% tariff was slapped on all cars not made in the US, targeting one of the world's most interconnected and vital industries, automotive manufacturing. Canada and Mexico, America's closest neighbors and trading partners, faced 25% tariffs on most goods. China was hit with a 10% tariff, reigniting a trade war many believed had finally ended. The shockwaves were immediate and far-reaching. The automotive industry, built on decades of global supply chains and just-in-time delivery, was thrown into chaos overnight as companies scrambled to respond. Suddenly, assembling a car in the US with parts from Mexico, Japan, or South Korea became prohibitively expensive, threatening jobs and production lines across the country. Legal challenges erupted almost instantly as automakers and trade groups fought back in court. But the tariffs took effect in April, forcing companies to adapt immediately or risk falling behind. The tariffs weren't just a negotiating tactic, they became a concrete barrier, costing companies billions from day one and sending shockwaves through financial markets. Countries like Switzerland and India faced even higher rates, creating a sense of global instability and unpredictability that rattled investors and governments alike. For automakers who rely on long-term planning and stable supply chains, this was a nightmare scenario that threatened to upend years of careful strategy. The message from the White House was clear and unmistakable. The rules of global trade had changed overnight. The era of free-flowing global trade was over, replaced by a new age of barriers, uncertainty, and economic nationalism. Companies that built their empires on international cooperation now faced a heavy price as the world entered a new era of economic uncertainty and upheaval. The economic theory behind the tariffs seemed logical on paper, promising to protect domestic industries and American jobs. But those theories quickly collided with harsh reality in Detroit, a city already struggling with economic challenges. 5 major Asian automakers, Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Kia, and others, announced they would exit or drastically scale back U.S. operations, citing unsustainable costs. This led to the immediate loss of 38,000 jobs in Detroit and surrounding areas, devastating countless families. The pain rippled through suppliers, truck drivers, cafeteria workers, and small businesses dependent on auto workers' paychecks, deepening the crisis. The promise of protecting American jobs had, ironically, destroyed them for thousands of hardworking people. Many workers, specialized in auto manufacturing, now faced an uncertain future with limited options. These companies weren't just foreign brands, they were major U.S. employers, deeply woven into the American economy and local communities. By treating them as adversaries, the policy left behind empty factories and shattered communities, with hope in short supply. The tariffs sent shockwaves through global financial markets, triggering panic and uncertainty among investors worldwide. Overnight, the sense of stability that had defined the auto industry for decades was shattered. Asian automakers' stocks plummeted, Toyota by 9.4%, Nissan by 9.3%, Honda by over 7%. These dramatic losses wiped out billions in market value in just a matter of days, sending shockwaves through the industry. American automakers suffered too. GM faced $5 billion in tariff-related costs, Ford, $3 billion. These staggering expenses forced companies to rethink investments, cut jobs, and delay new projects. Tariffs on parts from Mexico and Canada hit every car built in the U.S., hurting domestic and foreign companies alike. No automaker was spared, as supply chains tangled and costs soared. Even luxury brands like Porsche delayed new models and slashed profit forecasts. The pain rippled up and down the market, from mass-market sedans to high-end sports cars. The dream of a protected domestic auto industry quickly turned into a nightmare of rising costs and shrinking margins. Hopes for a manufacturing renaissance faded as layoffs and plant closures mounted. The market's verdict was clear: tariffs were a sledgehammer, not a scalpel, damaging the entire industry. Instead of targeted relief, the policy brought widespread destruction. Billions in lost market value and profits showed the trade war was making everyone poorer. The financial toll was impossible to ignore, as companies and workers alike felt the sting. Investors saw what policymakers ignored. In a globalized world, you can't punish one part without hurting the whole. The interconnectedness of the industry meant pain was shared by all. The industry's intricate machinery, built over decades, was being smashed overnight, leaving uncertainty and fear in its wake. America's closest allies didn't sit idly by. The world watched as the US took a hardline stance, and the response was swift and coordinated. Canada retaliated with 25% tariffs on $155 billion of US goods. The move sent shockwaves through industries on both sides of the border, disrupting long-standing supply chains and putting thousands of jobs at risk. Mexico prepared its own measures, signaling that no country would accept new US policies without a fight. Tensions mounted as cross-border trade slowed. The policy quickly escalated into a full-blown trade war, threatening decades of North American cooperation and putting the future of regional prosperity in jeopardy. Globally, negotiations turned tense and transactional. Trust between nations eroded as every deal became a battle for advantage, not partnership. South Korea warned that US demands for massive investments could trigger a financial crisis. Asian markets grew volatile and investors braced for more shocks. Switzerland negotiated arms and energy purchases to lower its tariff rate, a stark example of economic leverage. Other nations scrambled to secure their own deals. China halted all US soybean purchases, striking at American farmers and showing its willingness to inflict political pain. The ripple effects were felt in rural communities across America. While some deals, like spinning off TikTok's US operations, hinted at de-escalation, trust was badly damaged. Uncertainty lingered in boardrooms and on trading floors. Retaliatory tariffs and halted trade were not isolated events. They were the predictable result of confrontation over cooperation. The global economy braced for a prolonged standoff. The world became more hostile and unstable, with economic threats replacing partnerships. Old alliances fractured and uncertainty became the new normal. The consequences? Everyone was worse off. From factory workers to farmers, families everywhere faced an uncertain future. For most Americans, tariffs became real when car prices soared. By August, sticker prices for new vehicles jumped 3.3%, adding thousands to the cost of a new car. Automakers, unable to absorb the costs, passed them to consumers. The idea of shifting all production to the US overnight was a fantasy. Modern supply chains are global and complex. Tariffs on every imported part meant higher costs at every stage of production. Consumers faced higher prices and fewer choices as companies either paid tariffs or stopped selling certain models. The efficient system that kept car prices stable was dismantled, and American buyers paid the price. Globally, US products became less attractive as other countries anticipated retaliatory tariffs. Protectionist policies damaged America's brand and export competitiveness. The result, a lose-lose situation for consumers and businesses alike. The impact of auto tariffs rippled far beyond Detroit. Fears of a global downturn grew as sectors from Australian mining to Taiwanese tech suffered. China's halt on US soybean purchases devastated American farmers, forcing the administration to consider bailouts funded by tariff revenue. The US imported $474 billion in automotive products in 2024. Tariffs disrupted these massive trade flows, hurting logistics, shipping, and jobs. Ports, trucking companies, and railways faced dramatic reductions in volume. The economy isn't a simple machine. Actions in one sector have unpredictable consequences elsewhere. The damage to mining, tech, and farming was inevitable in a world of interconnected commerce. The trade war wasn't just about cars, it destabilized the entire economic order. The lesson: tariffs as a blunt tool can cause widespread, unintended harm. By September 2025, the US stood at a crossroads, reeling from the fallout of its own trade war. The goal of reviving American manufacturing had backfired, leading to job losses, factory closures, and strained alliances. Instead of a renaissance, both foreign and domestic companies suffered under rising costs and broken supply chains. The Supreme Court challenge and upcoming Apex Summit offered possible off-ramps, but trust and stability would take time to rebuild. The lesson was clear. In a global industry, punishing partners means punishing ourselves. Higher prices, lost value, and empty factories prove the dangers of economic isolationism. The future of American trade policy and the well-being of millions depends on learning from this costly experiment. The empty factories in Detroit stand as a warning. The price of choosing the wrong path is steep.